We are live and only on Facebook today because we have a bit of issues on YouTube. But this meeting will be recorded and it will be tomorrow on YouTube, so no problem about that. And tonight, so we're going to talk about enrichment with a wonderful Claudia from Canine Connect. And she has prepared a little presentation tell us all about how you can really enrich your dog's life and so that they're happier. And it's good for rescue dogs, but obviously for any dog owner. And I think we're just going to start the presentation. And then if you have any question, you can write them down in the comment, but you can also wait until the end. So because we will have a Q&A session after. And yeah, I think we're going to start with the presentation now. Okay.
Welcome to an introduction to enrichment. I am Clodagh and I form part of Canine Connect. So I'll give you a quick intro to us because I'm going to be talking at you for quite a while about enrichment. My name's Clodagh and together with Olivia we formed Canine Connect, a team of positive reinforcement trainers here in Cork, and we work with dogs and their owners, showing them that they can train their dogs using positive methods that are enjoyable for both ends of the lead. This little session is just our introductory course on enrichment. So I think often enrichment is seen as being all about food. We think of Kongs and lickies and chews and Nina Ottas and puzzles that we have to buy. But really, enrichment is about a lot more than just that. Hopefully, by the end of this, you'll start to realize that enrichment has a lot of different facets to it. And at its core, enrichment, in case you're not familiar with the term, is the act of improving the quality. So what we mean by this is we're improving the quality of the lives of our dogs. We've moved past, just needing to provide shelter and water and food. Nowadays, hopefully, we're more thinking about how can I enrich my dog? How can I care for the mental health of my dog, for their needs outside of just that safety and life preserving? So the goal of this little session is going to be finding enrichment in everyday things. So again, enrichment, it's not just about food. Food is one aspect and it's really important and it's really, I think, convenient for us. We have to feed our dogs, so feeding through enrichment can come quite naturally, but enrichment is out there in everyday life. You just need to be looking for it, really. Why do we need enrichment? So again, a lot of people might perceive enrichment as not being the most necessary of things, particularly if you do have a dog who is struggling or has behavior issues. But honestly, that is usually when enrichment is most important. So I'm going to give you just our top kind of 3 reasons why we feel enrichment should be part of every dog's life. Preventative care. So what we mean by this is it can help to prevent the onset of behavioral issues. It can also be part of the treatment of behavioral issues. I can't think of a behavior case I'm working with where I haven't suggested some form of enrichment or an improvement on enrichment that the owner is already trying to do. Time and time again, studies have shown us that animals living in under-enriched environments tend to develop abnormal behaviors. I think probably the most harrowing is that a lack of enrichment can contribute to stereotypies in dogs. If you're not familiar with that term, it's abnormal behaviors. So it's usually behaviors that can be normal, chasing their tail or spinning, pacing, but are being either repeated at an abnormal rate or are just impacting the dog's daily living. So a dog, that is chasing their tail to the point that they're actually hurting themselves. These types of cases, stereotypies, or what we often term canine compulsive disorders, most often occur for dogs that are living under enriched lives. So dogs that may have no bedding, they're just in a crate, or are just fed from the bowl, are kept in enclosures like crates or X pens for extended periods of the day. That lack of enrichment usually contributes to quite a few behavior problems. The other aspect, which I think you might be more familiar with, is brain development. So I think when people think of enrichment, it's very much about the brain, getting our dogs to use their brains. We're more au fait with getting them to use their bodies. We walk them, we walk the legs off them. But getting dogs to use their brains is something that I think a pet dog owner has kind of fallen out of habit with. Brain development, super important, particularly for puppies to have that enrichment, because the brain is growing and developing. So it can be a really pivotal time to have a good enrichment plan in place. But also for older dogs, studies that we do have tell us that dogs who have had enrichment in their life and continue to have it, when they reach that kind of geriatric phase, the onset of dementia is lower in them, or often called canine cognitive dysfunction, but essentially dementia for dogs. That's lower if your dog did a lot of enrichment, or you just naturally had a very enriched life for your pet dog. So again, really, really important for the brain. Not just puppies, think about your aging or older dogs too. And then the final aspect that is, again, I think where most people with dogs with any kind of behavior stuff that you're working on is confidence building. Enrichment can build a dog's confidence in a way that kind of rigid training just can't. The beauty of enrichment is often that there's not a whole lot of expectation on the dog. You've just set something up, or have exposed them to something, and you're observing to see, do they find this enjoyable? What are their thoughts? What are they feeling? So it's quite low stress for them when it comes to improving confidence. It also usually gives choice and agency. So you'll see me coming back to this quite a bit throughout our next little presentation. Choice and agency are really important when it comes to our dogs' lives, full stop, but particularly to enrichment. Enrichment is only enriching if the dog likes it. So we do need to be getting that feedback from our dog to see, are they being entertained by this right now? Are they enjoying this? Or do they actually find it a bit stressful, a bit worrying? In that case, it's not enrichment. Our other trainer, Olivia, will have a dog body language course, her little introductory, coming up for you guys at the end of the week. So that'll give you hints to tell, oh, my dog is happy with this, my dog is a little bit worried, a little bit stressed by this. You need to kind of read their body language. We won't be covering that today, but again, if you stick around to Friday, I think she'll be covering that. Again, choice, just major. We decide everything for our dogs at the end of the day. We decide when they get up, when they eat, when they walk, where they walk. They really have very little autonomy over their lives. So giving them that little bit of choice, that little bit of agency can really, really make a difference. So those are things we're going to come back to. But again, important to bear in mind whenever you put any kind of enrichment plan in place. Next, I've kind of categorized things for you. So the first thing we're going to cover is enrichment through exercise. Again, remember, not all about food. So I've actually left food to the last because I want you guys thinking about other ways that you can enrich your dog's day. Exercise is one. It's usually a really handy one because most of us are walking our dogs every day anyway. So building in a little bit of exercise-based enrichment is generally quite easy for owners. It's something I'll recommend even for a very busy owner who has a lot going on. Exercise-based enrichment is one that they can quite easily tick the box on because they're going out for their walk anyway. One of those things that we like, and I probably recommend the most, is the sniffari. So this is a sniffing safari. Instead of thinking how far you'll walk or what route you'll take today, what loop, because we humans love a good loop, just let your dog lead by their nose. Let them put their nose to the ground or nose in the air if they like to air scent, and just let them follow it. Let them explore their environment. That's what they'd be doing if they were off lead. And if you're in a situation where you can't let them off lead, letting them lead by their nose is the next best alternative. Again, the focus here is just letting your dog choose what they want to do. So they're allowed to weave back and forth in front of me. I don't care about my heel work training in that moment, letting my dog just make the choice to follow whatever scent they do want to follow. Sniff areas can be a really, really lovely one to do. I'm seeing more and more people do it now, less and less of the people jerking and dragging their dogs along the road. Just letting them stop and smell the roses can be really, really beneficial to their mental health. Parkour, so another little play on words. We have parkour in humans, which if you're not familiar with is kind of like humans using urban environments as gymnastic kind of areas, jumping on walls or back flipping off things. We won't be asking our dogs to do all that unless you're very talented. Instead, we kind of use parkour as our way of getting agility into day-to-day life. Use things you have in the environment as jumps. Like this lovely dog here is doing it over a downed tree, or you might have a tree stump that you can get your dog either to hop onto, or if they are that little bit older, to just put 2 paws on it, to jump over it, just using the environment and making it a bit more fun. Anything that is a standing object, so things like lampposts, trees, or any bollards, you can send your dog around. They can do little spins around it. A lot of the herding breeds tend to enjoy that one, to be honest, the collies and the likes. So yeah, parkour, just look at your walk in a new light. It's how your dog is viewing it. It's why they're all often so excited and interested, is because they're usually looking at the world through that playful lens. So join them in that and think, okay, where can I make a little agility course on my walk? I guarantee there's bound to be something that you could engage in. Home exercise is the next one. So I would definitely recommend reaching out to a certified veterinary physiotherapist. There are some great ones around the country. We have one down here in Cork, Pet Paws Physio, and she's given us some great exercises for our own dogs and stretches that they can do at home. Again, it's another aspect of exercise that I don't think many people think of when they consider their dog's exercise needs. We don't think about them quote unquote working out, but definitely stretching, doing controlled exercises, controlled movement can be very beneficial for the body and very enriching. It requires a lot of concentration from our dogs. So again, another great one, to be honest, that a lot of dogs seem to benefit from. Swimming, again, depending on where you're located, this can be an easy one to factor in. It can be not so easy to factor in. But swimming can be really, really beneficial for dogs. It's a sensory-wise very enriching for them, and also, yeah, movement-wise. If provided they enjoy swimming, it can be very, very enriching. Again, provided they enjoy it, because what do we know about enrichment? It's only enrichment if the dog finds it enriching. So if your dog is the type who's at the beach and is skirting away from those waves, or dips a toe in and then runs away again, swimming could be a goal that you work towards with your trainer, but it's not something your dog is going to find enriching right now. So again, for some dogs, really, really enjoy it in safe waters, paddling about, but others, it's not enriching and it may never be enriching for them, and that's okay. They are individuals at the end of the day, and so similar to ourselves, what I might enjoy and find enriching, you might not. I personally love reading fiction, particularly like fantasy books and stuff like that, versus I know our other trainer, Olivia, is more of a non-fiction person. So if I sat her down and made her read a book, a la kind of Game of Thrones, I don't think she would find it enriching, and that's okay. She's an individual. Your dogs are going to be the exact same. They're individuals. What they find enriching is going to be unique to them. The second one I wanted to cover was scent. Often enrichment can be categorized as sensory. I've dedicated scent as its own little module because it's just such a big part of our dogs' lives. Their primary sensory organ is their nose. So getting them using it, they're already using it, but getting yourself involved in the act of them using it can be really beneficial. It's the thing I notice, that if I don't do enough scent enrichment with my dog, I'll really see the effects of that. I can kind of let the food enrichment go by the wayside and not notice too many behavioral changes. But if he doesn't get to use his nose enough, I'm going to see the ill effects of that. And in a very kind of mild way of, he'll just be resting a bit less, up and down, looking out the windows a bit more. Nothing major, but I just know I haven't used his nose enough. I haven't stimulated that part of his brain, and I'm seeing the downsides of that. So one thing I have built in, and I'm not very green thumbed. If you are green thumbed, this will be great for you. Is enriching the garden space I have. I've kind of considered enriching my indoor space as well, but I haven't gotten around to it. With plants. Plants are a really great thing for your dog to sniff. I'm sure we're all familiar with our dogs, pulling us down the road to their favorite bush. That can be related to, other dogs urinating on it, but there are certainly plants that our dogs like the smell of, or certainly there are scents that our dogs like the smell of. So once we do have some studies on our mint, chamomile, lavender, rose, mint has seemingly a very activating effect on our dogs, meaning when mint was released into a kennel environment, the dogs rested less. So they were standing more, looking around more, things like that. Versus for chamomile and lavender, when those were diffused into the area, the dogs rested more. They lay down, they sat. They didn't go to sleep, but they certainly offered more resting behaviors. So again, just really enriching. It changes our dogs at a minor level, but it does change them, how they feel. So yeah, I would say if you're in any way green thumbed, simply research dog safe plants, because it is important that they're safe for your dog, and start to plant them around your dog's back garden. Mint, in case anyone is unfamiliar though, is quite I don't know the terminology for it, but like, it will keep growing and growing. You need to be on top of it and cutting it back and weeding, I have discovered, or else probably put it in a pot would be the most convenient. Hide and seek is our next one. So again, our dogs' noses are just so powerful, and we really don't take advantage of it as much as we could. Certainly here in Ireland, we don't have any medical detection dogs. We have other detection dogs, but we have none, that detect for diabetes and things like that. But our average pet dog has that same ability. Their nose is just so much more developed than ours. So what we can get them doing around the house is games of hide and seek. Get them sniffing out their food, like their dry nuts or their kibble. Or if you want to up the ante, if they're not that interested, you go to treats. If they're a really toy focused dog, you can get their favorite ball, their favorite tug toy, things like that. Hide it out of sight of them. So it could be that, for me, I pop my dog into the room, I tell him a wait, I go into another room, hide his ball, come back in and give him his release cue of, okay, go find it. And he bops around the house looking for where I've hidden it. Again, a thing I find important is try not to, unless your dog is really, really struggling and getting frustrated, try not to give them too many hints, because I see people giving too many hints and almost doing the work for the dog, and that ruins the enrichment. So it's natural for him. I'll only have gone into the room next door and he's still run up the stairs. It's not necessarily that he's stupid or can't find it. It's that he is using his nose, and scent does not follow where my feet was going. Scent moves a lot more erratically than that. So he is following where the scent is, and he's looking for where it's at its weakest, where it's at its strongest. So usually they will go in the wrong direction initially, almost kind of assess, okay, I'm getting cold, now I'll go back into hot, warm, So yeah, do try this game, but give your dog a benefit of the doubt. They do generally know what they're doing, unless they're really, really struggling. They start to bark or do any of the frustration related behaviors that Liv will be covering during the week. Don't give them a hint unless they really, really struggle. Scent oils is another thing that you could pop on the shopping list. So these are scent oils. Usually they come in either like a dropper form, or else they come in scent kind of sticks that you can rub on things. In I was about to say flavors, but in smells like pheasant, rabbit, again mint, popular one, or any other scent. The pheasant or rabbit are usually the most interesting, I think, because unless you're living in an area that is populated by those animals, it's quite novel to your dog. Your dog may not have smelled a pheasant before, so it's usually very interesting. The first time I ever introduce it, it usually is just that. The enrichment is, here's this scent oil. Do you want to smell it? And your dog is just having a little scent and just processing all of that. Versus then maybe, a couple of days later, I might lay a trail in the garden and then let my dog out. And again, kind of almost maybe tricking them that a pheasant might have run through the garden. Um, don't do this if your dog has rehearsed predatory chase behaviors in the garden that you're trying to work out. But if you're like myself, quite happy for them to track things through the garden, this can be another great enrichment activity. One other thing you can do, which they did up in the north, I'm not sure where, but they did a very interesting study where they, again, in a shelter environment, coated the toys in rabbit scent. So a toy that the dogs had had for, say, a week. They took it away, coated it in rabbit scent, and were testing to see could it become interesting again, even if a dog had become bored of that toy, if some scent was coated in it. And the results were yes, the dogs showed great interest in it again. The interest did wane after a while, which is natural. But yeah, it can be a great way if your dog is getting bored of their toys, just rubbing some new scent on it. And again, either enticing them to play the hide and seek game, or simply presenting it to them and playing, and it's all quite interesting to them. Enrichment based on novelty. So by novelty, we naturally mean new things, anything new that you are presenting to your dog. Why this is so major and why I've dedicated a whole little mini section to it is dogs are neophiliacs. This means they enjoy new and novel things. The downside of this, they get bored of things quite easily, usually. So that could be why you buy your dog a new toy and they're desperately excited about it, and then the next day it's just left in the garden and they don't care about it anymore. It's not that they, are trying to give you a hard time or aren't appreciative of your gifts. It is how we've bred them to be. They are neophiliacs. They enjoy the novelty of new things, but they habituate and get used to those new things quite quickly. The upside of that is they've been able to be domesticated alongside us as we went from, little cavemen to in our big lovely cities. That's why they habituate so quickly. But the downside is they habituate and they get bored of the things that we have spent lots of money on. So if you do notice your dog getting bored of any of the enrichment things you're doing, so like that, the scent oil that you might have bought, or a new Nina Austin puzzle that you've bought, them getting bored doesn't mean you need to give up on enrichment. It doesn't mean that your dog, just isn't one of these dogs that loves enrichment. They are being a dog, they are being neophiliacs, and they are just habituating to the novelty. What that really means is you need to change it up a bit. You need to give them a little bit of variety. Variety is definitely the spice of life for dogs. What this can usually mean is just changing it a little bit. So like I said, coating an old toy in a new scent gives that little bit of a, oh, this is novel, gets their interest again. So honestly, that has been the biggest thing for me, is my dog has made me become more and more creative. I wouldn't have thought of myself as a creative person, but when you start to live, and certainly when you start to take note of how enrichment affects your dog, you become quite a handy dandy person, getting good at little DIY upgrades to toys, and you become a little bit more creative. Okay, novelty. So new sights, pretty easy one to do, is just exposing your dog to new things. So go on new walks. Again, their nose might be to the ground, but they're in a new environment as well. And at points, their either eyes will be hooded up and they're watching, or they'll be taking things in If you can't go to new areas, what you can do is drive around. If you have a dog that is habituated, meaning that they enjoy the car, so they don't find it stressful, they're not stress panting or moving around. Again, well, that is kind of body language that would tell you that they're not happy with it. But if they're quite happy, contented to just sit in the car and watch the world go by, that's a great time to bring them to novel things. So particularly like things with wildlife where you wouldn't want your dog out there distressing, the sheep or the cows. You wouldn't want them nose to nose if the cows aren't socialized to dogs either. Then doing it through a car can be really beneficial at a distance. Or it can simply be going to another town. So going a town over, and again, your dog is just watching the world go by. If none of that is if your dog isn't reactive to any of that, can be really enriching. But again, your dog decides it's enriching, not you. So look to them for what their opinion is. If they either show any signs of stress or just show signs of boredom, so if they take their head down and just fall asleep, then maybe that doesn't constitute an enrichment activity for them. But again, it depends. It really does. Next one is sounds. This is an interesting one. Novel sounds can be enriching. So often I'll use YouTube if I can't get the sound in real life. But I'll search things like, a bluebird. What sounds do they make? And I might play it on my phone for my dog. Again, if you have a dog that has a high predation drive or something you're trying to work through with regards to predation, I wouldn't be recommending the bird stuff or any other kind of prey animal sound. But what you can do is the sound of other dogs, say barking in the background or little puppy sounds. Again, provided your dog finds it enriching and not stressful. So really, honestly, it's why we kind of paired ourselves doing the enrichment and the body language. They go hand in hand. To tell if something is enriching, you need to be able to read your dog's body language quite well. The next bit is new tastes. This is one I do quite regularly, to be honest, because it's convenient and easy for me. Novel taste is a really good one for dogs. All I generally do is kind of ask Siri, is this safe for dogs to eat? If she tells me yes, then I'll give my dog a taste of whatever it is I'm preparing. So you can see the dog here is having some lovely slices of banana. Hopefully he is not getting the grapes that are on that plate, because we do know that those are not dog safe. Again, you can look it up, but there's a couple of things on the list that you should be aware of. Things like grapes, onions, raisins, chocolate, I think is the one we all know. But there are quite a few foods that are on the toxic list for dogs, so avoid those. But generally, most fruits and veggies and meats are fairly suitable. Just do ask your Google service first before you give it to your dog. And again, it's just a little bit of novelty, so it's just them being exposed to it. It's not necessarily that you're factoring it into their diet. It could just be that I know I have some watermelon in the fridge that I'm going to have later, and I'll probably give my dog a little taste of that because I know he does like that. It's mostly just water, but he seems to enjoy it. Scent we partially already covered. So again, if you are doing any of the scent stuff from before, like the oils or new plants that you've brought into your house or your garden, that would cover you for your scent enrichment and novelty enrichment. So often these things do kind of coincide. We categorize enrichment, but often when you're doing one thing, you're ticking a lot of different boxes. So yeah, which is handy and convenient for you. It's not always that you need to be doing one of each of the things I've recommended. Often one enrichment activity covers a lot of different areas for your dog. New touches is another one. So again, touch is another sensory organ that we can cover for our dogs under the guidance of a physio. I've spelled that wrong. I'll edit that. Under the guidance of a physio, because again, pain is something that is really underdiagnosed in dogs. So I wouldn't want to factor in any new type of massage or touch if we don't have a pain assessment from a pain certified vet, or you're working under the guidance of your veterinary physiotherapist. They can recommend things like massage as well as things like T-touch. Again, I'm not going to cover it today because it's not something I would recommend for every dog when I don't know their medical background. But again, speak to your own vets or ideally a pain certified vet, and find out if it's an option for your enrichment plan. Enrichment by learning. So this is another one I think that people consider majorly when they're trying to enrich their dog's life. It's stimulating the brain. It's particularly cognitive action is getting that brain thinking, learning, problem solving things. Dogs are really smart. They have a huge potential. We know this based on, not only all the work they've done for us, either being gun dogs or herding dogs. We're now doing things like medical detection. They also just are really smart in of their own right before they ever started working for us. They are really, really just have the most aptitude that we don't take advantage of. A couple of little ideas I guess I've had for you guys are trick training is one. So teaching new tricks stimulates the brain majorly. So the key there is new tricks, or adding some new element to an old trick. So if you're teaching something like the two lovely dogs here are doing a sit pretty, which is sitting back on the haunches, paws raised. If you were teaching that for the first time, that would be trick training. You're teaching a new thing to your dog, and you're coming up with it together, and you're kind of problem solving, and your dog is really having to engage their forebrain to reason out what you're asking of them. I would argue that trick training also would cover something old that you're adding a new element to. So if you were teaching a down and your dog already knew down, but you wanted to add in a new element to it, where, for example, your dog did a down and then moved their chin to the floor. That's often what we call like a rested down. So the dog isn't in that sphinx position where the head is up. You're now chaining in a head resting on the floor. That is trick training because you're adding in a new element, so you're stimulating that forebrain again and really getting them thinking. Where I see people sometimes fall down with this is they'll think that, them asking their dog to sit for their dinner is enrichment because they're training them. And it is probably the first time you ask it, but if it's the 5 millionth time you've asked it, they don't really have to engage much of their brain. They don't have to reason out what you're asking. Usually all they have to do is recall from memory what you always ask. So it's not enriching, but it's just not the most enriching thing you could do. So do try to kind of change it up as much as you can. Often I'll even just change it up in that I'll ask my dog to do things in a sequence and then change up the sequence. So we might do, for example, a sit, down, and a stand. We might do sit, down, stand, stand, down, sit. Just change it up like that. Again, it requires them to think a little bit and to engage that big old brain of theirs. Another one is group classes. So if you've never been before, if your dog is a new puppy or newly adopted, group classes can be really beneficial. They're not for every dog. Let's make that clear. They're not for every dog. Just like they're not for every human. I don't think every human enjoys a group class. They don't like having other owners watch them train. Dogs are individuals as much as we are. So again, your dog will only find a group class enriching if they find it enriching. It's up to them. But they can be great either at a beginner's level where you're teaching them the basics, those kind of life skill stuff, or at more advanced if you're doing dog sports like the lovely collie we have here doing some weaves through agility poles. They can be really, really beneficial, not only for that learning enrichment, but also for bonding with your dog, which is another aspect of enrichment. It's called social enrichment, and we have bred dogs to really need that social enrichment from us. We've bred them to live with us, so they don't generally cope with being away from us for too long. I think that's where the notion of kind of separation anxiety. Separation anxiety exists in about every dog. It's just to what degree, because we've bred them to live with us. So leaving them alone for really, really long periods of time is going to affect them, I think, regardless of whether they're showing it at a very overt, I bark, I cry, things like that. Anyway, that's besides the point. Group class is really beneficial, but not for every dog. Just like all of these bits, they're not for every dog. Puzzles, so making or buying puzzle toys for your dog to search through with their food can be really, really, really enjoyable. I prefer generally making them because, again, going back to dogs being neophiliacs, if you buy a lovely, expensive puzzle for 20, 30, sometimes they're like 40, 50 euro, and your dog will sit down and try lots of attempts. They might use their paws like this dog here, or use their teeth to pick things up, and it'll take them, depending on the dog, it could take anywhere from 5 minutes to 20 minutes for them to finish that puzzle. But I guarantee the next day they'll be a little bit faster, and the day after that a little bit faster, and by a week later your dog has either learned to go through the puzzle really, really quickly in like 3 minutes flat, or they've learned how to cheat the puzzle by doing something like my dog would do, which is taking the edge and flipping it, and then all food will pop out. So again, that honestly I would argue is enriching. Your dog has figured out a knack to get it done really, really efficiently, or has figured out how to cheat the system. I find that hugely enriching to watch. The downside is it doesn't take them as long, so it's not stimulating the brain for as long, or it's not stimulating the nose for as long if it's a nose-based one. So that is the downside, and it's why I prefer DIY puzzles, to be honest, is because I can factor those things in. The cheats that my dog often attempts, I can avoid by making the puzzle customized for him. So we'll be covering it a little bit in a while in the food section. But DIY enrichment usually involves any kind of recyclable material, so cardboard, plastics, things like that. Towels or old bedding I'll often use as well. Just any kind of puzzle that you see that you're thinking of buying, think, can I make something similar to this at home? And if so, then why not? Usually it'll last you a bit longer, because once your dog starts to get that knack and starts to speed up in their ability to reason it through, you change the puzzle. Even if it's only slightly, that'll, again, slow them down a little bit, get them back in that thinking brain and get them back working. So we're on to the last bit, which I think is probably what most people think of when they think of enrichment, and what most people probably anticipated learning about. It's food enrichment. So it's using your dog's food, so usually at meal times, breakfast and dinner, or using other food, so tasty things that they want to engage in, to enrich their meal times and enrich their day, because I do spread it out throughout the day. What we do know about dogs is they get a dopamine release from seeking out food, not from eating it. So I might say that again. Dogs get a dopamine release from seeking out the food, not from eating it. I think that's maybe a tough one for us to conceptualize, because we have started plating up our dog's food. We put it into a bowl now. But generally that's not when they get that dopamine release, which, if you're not familiar with dopamine, it's that reward-centered, nice, I feel confident, I feel good, I ticked something off my to-do list kind of hormone. They don't get that when we plate up food to them, is the long and short of it. Versus when we do something as simple as scoop their nuts and scatter it on the kitchen tiles, they get a dopamine release from seeking out all those nuts, the one that's gone under the table or the one that's near the edge of the fridge. That gets their dopamine releasing into their system. So pretty important. There are cases where I won't recommend ditching the bowl. So particularly if I'm working with a dog who's underweight, I'm not really going to want to ditch the bowl, because we're usually wanting to get a lot of food in and we're wanting to monitor that food quite closely. So that may not be the case where I want to ditch the bowl. Or Sometimes in resource guarding cases, so dogs that growl or grumble over food and resources, I'm going to be a little bit more tactful on when I use food enrichment versus when I don't. So again, like everything we've discussed, depends on the dog. Some find this enriching, some do not. Scatter feeding. So this lovely image I picked because if any of you have ever fed chickens, that it's pretty much scatter feeding. That's what we've modeled it off of for our dogs. You just take their nuts and scatter it either into the grass out in your back if you have it, or into stones if that's what you have, or tiles, things like that. The downside with stones is most of the nuts can often look quite similar to stones, so you may get a dog picking up the stone and hopefully spitting it back out when they realize it's not food, or the downside is them swallowing it. So ideally, all this is done on grass. If you don't have that, then it's done on your lovely carpet at home, or on your flooring, tiles, things like that. But scatter feeding, it's the one I do the most because I'm lazy and it's very convenient to me to just feed my dog like a chicken. And he enjoys it, and he still enjoys it to this day. So it's the one I probably defer to the most above, yeah, everything else. The next slide though is your alternative if you don't have a back garden. So you're living in an apartment, maybe you might have a balcony at most, but it's covered in, like wooden slats. This is where I probably recommend a snuffle mat. Or if it's a rainy day and you don't want to chuck it out into the mud that used to be a garden, again, a snuffle mat indoors can be a good option. Snuffle mats are these little guys here. So what you would do is pick up, say, a piece of that yellow fleece and hide some of the nuts in there and then fold the piece back over. I love the really full ones, so even fuller than that image, to be honest. I like, at least for advanced dogs, that's good for a beginner, one like that, that's a little bit thinner because the treat is usually visible, the dog can see it, and then they're a little bit more motivated, like, okay, I'm going to go try and get that out. Versus the more advanced you become, because again, they're neophiliac, so they'll get bored of this eventually, usually, and either start to do it very quickly or do things like pull the corner and tip it all over. But if they're more advanced, I get a fuller one, and then I start to really stuff them down the bottom, where my dog either has to snuffle and really root around like a little piggy, or they have to use their paws and start to dig. Again, I know owners see their dogs do that with the snuffle mats I bring to my sessions and start to apologize. And I'm like, don't apologize. He looks like he's having the time of his life right now, digging away in my snuffle mat. He might rip off a piece of fleece, but it's a piece of fleece. I don't care that much. He's having a good time. I think sometimes that's the balance, is your dog, sometimes the enjoyment of it, something you've bought for them, is destroying it. So I think that teaches you maybe not to value the items that you buy as much, or to get cheaper things, or to DIY things at home. Another little learning lesson that our dogs give us. Cardboard boxes. So we discussed this a little bit earlier, but again, it's the DIY kind of puzzles. So if you're not buying the ones that come pre-made and are kind of plasticky, I'd recommend DIYing your own with these kind of cardboard boxes. So something for a beginner, I would just take a cardboard box, just take their food, put food in the box. Particularly if they're a dog that's new to your home, that's a good way to gauge their confidence levels almost, to see, are they willing to put their head into a novel item. So cardboard box is a novel item. Are they willing to put their little head in to take some treats? Again, the box is going to probably move around, make some noises, so all that can be either disconcerting to a very fearful dog, or confidence building of, oh, this stuff is making noises, it's a little bit worrying, but I'm going to do it anyway because I'm choosing to. Again, that's the benefit of enrichment, is we get to gauge things like that. If you were leveling it up, what I then go to probably is taking some either wrapping paper or things like newspapers and crumpling that up, putting it in the box, and then putting some dry food in there. Dry food is usually best because the wet food is just going to stick to the cardboard itself, and that kind of ruins the puzzle element because they all kind of stay in place. That would be level 2, because the dog again has to do that little piggy motion of rooting around in there. Um, Level 3 would be something like multiple boxes. So a box within a box within a box. Again, all of this at the moment is an open top, so I'm making it visually very clear to my dog. That usually is good for any dog that hasn't done it before or is easily frustrated, because if they can still keep an eye on the treat, it usually keeps them a bit more motivated. I'm only using things like covered boxes or upside down boxes with dogs that are already fairly advanced and I know have a good concentration level and don't get themselves into a flap when they struggle. Because it's not nice to see them struggle, and it is also quite demotivating for them to try and try and try and put so much effort into trying to figure out this puzzle and get no reward. So this is kind of the balancing act of enrichment, is you want to make it difficult enough that they have to work for it, but not too difficult that they opt out because it feels horrible to constantly fail. It is a balancing act, and what I would say is always start off too easy, because you can always make things more and more difficult. If you start off too difficult, it's hard to try to bring the dog back because usually they've lost a bit of their confidence and they're just like, I don't want to bother trying, Mom. It's going to be too difficult, so I'm not even going to bother. Which is sad. We don't want that. Kong stuffing is the next one, so I'm sure we're all quite familiar with Kongs. There are some great recipes out there, again, of things like soft cheeses, pâtés, wet dog food is the easiest one probably, where you stuff your Kong with that and maybe a mixture of some dry food as well. And again, you give it to your dog for them to lick and gnaw a little bit on. They don't do major chewing. What has come out in recent years is the licky mat. So again, in short bursts, these are enjoyable. Some dogs can find the licky mats boring. Again, because they're just there and the dog is licking, licking, licking. Licking is one up for contention. We certainly know that dogs chew to relax, and sniffing they find relaxing, but licking as a behavior, dogs don't often offer it. They will, lick parts of their body in a self-grooming way or in a self-soothing way if they are feeling pain, but they don't often sit down and just lick at the table or lick at cushions. If they are doing that, that's usually an abnormal behavior, and we're kind of moving into, again, stereotypies territory. So again, I would say short bursts with this, similar to the one we prepped above. We're just doing a small corner, getting them licking for a couple of minutes at most. Chewing, we do know, definitely relaxes dogs. They do get that nice dopamine release from seeking out, again, the chewing action. And it's just nice, it's natural. I would recommend any kind of the healthy alternatives for chews, which I think varies vet to vet. I know we were speaking to one vet who didn't like the antlers so much because they're quite hard, so what this dog has in the picture. But I think their recommendation was like rubber toys, and I don't see dogs chewing on rubber toys that much. And if I do, I find them destroying them, and then they're at risk of ingesting. So speak to your vet, but generally avoid rawhide. Certainly, I think everyone is of the opinion that those should be avoided, and just choose healthy options that are natural. So that is it. Thank you for listening. I've run over a little bit, but it really is great that you have taken the time to learn more about enriching the life of your dog. Again, enriching the life of your dog is just about improving their quality of life, which I think is what we all want, really. At its core, we will talk about, the separation anxiety or the reactivity, but what we really mean is I want to help improve my dog's quality of life. As a little added thank you, we are giving you a free PDF of ours. It's our enrichment tracker. So you'll see it's just Monday to Sunday, and we have the different aspects to enrichment that I covered: exercise, scent, novelty, learning, food. Because the best way for you to see what helps your dog and what entertains them is to track it. Data is very powerful stuff. You'll find that both myself and Olivia are very much based in the science, so we like a little bit of data tracking. Who doesn't? And down the bottom you'll see is where you can rank your dog's behavior, so you can see what benefits them the most. It might be that for me, whenever I do scent enrichment, I see the clearest behavior change, so that I know is really important for me. The rest of them I generally chop and change through. So again, that's just a little thank you that Geraldine will send out on our behalf. Do reach out to us if you have any questions, because I'm sure I ran through and gave you a lot of information. It's info@canineconnect.ie is where you can find us.
Thank you so much. What a presentation. This was awesome.
Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was very, very packed of full information. So if anybody has questions, like I'm trying to see in the comment as well, if anybody has questions, you can put them in a comment. We have a few minutes to actually answer them. Regarding the freebie, I know you mentioned the tracker, so I will send that by email to the people who registered. If you haven't, you can put your email, or if you're not sure, if you don't remember, you can put your email in the comment as well to make sure that you get it. That's for the practicality of the freebie. And yeah, if you have any question, let us know in the comment. I'm trying to keep an eye on everything because I know there's a delay on when we broadcast on Facebook. So there's a lot of thank you. Oh, there you go. Okay, so first question, you ready?
Ready.
Okay, so what brands, types of scent oils are safe for dogs?
Okay, interesting. Well, we have ones that are specifically made for dogs. Usually they're sold in gun dog shops, which I don't think Liz might be able to tell me, but I don't think we have any in Ireland. I think it's all you'd buy them online and order them in. I don't think there is a gun dog shop here nationally. We've gotten ours from the UK. With honestly, with a Google search is all I've used. There's a good few gun dog shops that sell them now in either the stick form that I talked about, or there's the kind of dropper form as well.
They're available here in Ireland. Yeah,
Who sells them?
they're on. There's a shop in Waterford.
Okay.
I can look it up and just pop it in the question there. Yep.
I think that would be great. Yeah. You know, because I was actually, that was one of my questions as well, because I know some are not safe, and because I know Carly from Whitehorn Helper is going to talk to us about all that tomorrow, because we have a thing about, you know, essential oils and stuff. So it's very important to point that out, that not everything is obviously safe.
Yeah.
So and everything is in the UK as well, which is, well, there's a lot of better stuff in the UK, unfortunately.
Usually.
Which doesn't help with the actual Brexit, but that's the way it is. Now let's see. I'm trying to see if there is any other question. I love the thing about the new taste of food as well. It was brilliant.
Yeah, it's such a convenient one to do, and it is really entertaining to watch. Like a lot of people have gone viral on TikTok for simply serving up little plates of novel food to their dogs and seeing what does your dog like, what do they spit out. It's a little experience for them. It's not always, you know, about doing some puzzle or work for food. It's the food in of itself can be enriching.
I know. And we're actually gonna have a challenge about that food, but I don't want to reveal it. It will be tomorrow, but we're gonna have a challenge about that. So there you go. It's gonna be funny. No, there's a lot of I'm just reading the comments there. Excellent presentation, thank you, great information and tips. So no question, but everybody is saying thank you. So
thank you guys for tuning in, and it really does show like that people care about their dogs, don't they? And really want to improve their lives in any small way that they can, which is so lovely.
I want to see if there's any other question popping up.
Oh, Liv has popped in. It's openseason.ie. It's the place that sells the Gundog scent oils here in Ireland.
Hold on, I put that in. Oh yeah, okay. I can put that. Oops, in the thingy. No. Oh no, that's not in the right. Okay. So that's for the oils.
Yeah, that's for the pheasant and rabbit oil.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, and the dogs do usually find it very interesting, especially if you pair it with, the Tug Enough rabbit furs.
Yeah.
Sorry, vegans are watching, but if you pair the oil with that scent, the dogs are very engaged and convinced that it's something very interesting to them.
Yeah. And the sounds as well, because I know you mentioned the sounds. It's great for socialization, but it's great for anything really.
Yeah. One I didn't get to mention is bamboo. Often is a really good novel sound to add in because it usually changes the way that sound is processed. So if you plant like bamboo in your garden, it can be good for reactive dogs because it can almost act like nature's white noise machine. But it's just very interesting sound for them at times.
That's hilarious because I absolutely love bamboos, and actually my garden is full of bamboos, but I didn't even know that. But there you go.
Yeah, it can be really good for them. I know. I'm wanting to invest. I want to put some kind of a little corner of bamboo or something for them.
Yeah. No, I love bamboos. So there you go. It's even better now. Yeah.
Yeah, another excuse to buy some more.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, I don't think I can put any more, to be honest. Too much already. But yeah, no, so probably great for them. So that's good. Now I don't see any more comments. I'll just wait a bit more. Yeah, if you have any question. Kong stuffing as well. I know you mentioned it, and I know you said that probably everybody knows about Kong, but that's actually not that true that I found out. So. Yeah. Just so you know, like when we talk about the Kong, it's that rubber. Well, you've seen it in the presentation there, but it's that rubber duck toy, like quite thick rubber. That so it lasts long and it's nearly indestructible compared to other chew toys that can be. So yeah, definitely. I always say to dog owners, if you can only invest in one toy for your dog, just get a Kong, and it's great for enrichment and you can fill it with everything. And I love to fill mine as well with supplements. It's a great way to give stuff to your dog as well. And if you have medication as well, it can really help. So definitely get a Kong.
Yeah, it is. It's tried and tested. I think there's a reason it's so popular. It's a great one to have. And I know Liv is. Can you talk, Liv?
Yes.
Yeah, you can mention the topple is another interesting one.
I put it in the comments there. I personally like the topple more so than I like the Kong. The Kong is a little bit more difficulty level to it. The Kong is slightly easier, and I think the dog is a little bit more motivated. For sensitive dogs or for dogs who lack confidence, the Kong can be a little bit too much at times. I think the topple again gives that confidence. Yes, I can do this. And once they do it, it's motivation to do more. So I personally like the topple.
Okay, I'll add that in the comment as well.
So it's TOPPL.
Yeah. No.
And that opening is wider at the top, and it's easier for brachycephalic breeds as well.
Yeah.
So the boxers, the bulldogs, yeah, it's a better option.
There really is such a world of products now for dogs when it comes to enrichment. Like I'm loving going into pet shops and seeing more and more of the aisle comprised of toys or enrichment things and less of, just food. Because it is mostly about, well, not mostly, but it's also about how we deliver that food. You need to get the nutrition in, but that's not ideal if your dog then gets no dopamine release at all by eating. They're going to stop turning up to the food bowl because it's just not an enjoyable experience for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Just keeping an eye again. Don't think we have any more at the moment. Okay, we give it a few more minutes. If you have any other question, just pop it in now. I know there's a bit of a delay, which doesn't help when we live stream on Facebook and YouTube, but just give it a bit more time. And I love the idea of the plant garden as well. I took some note there.
Yeah, it really, I want to enrich. We've had some work done. I want to go back and enrich the garden again, because we dug up a load of the plants, and they do habituate to them quite quickly. So they're interesting the first few days, and then it's okay, I'm just going to pee on this and go. But it's still worth it for those first few days of, oh, what's mom planted out here? Yeah. And it's just an enjoyable experience for you as well. Like I get my dog involved in the digging process, try to get him digging some holes as well. All of that is enriching. I think that's what I wanted to get away was, it's not always about, oh, I have to sit down and make a plan for enrichment. That kind of ruins the enjoyment for me anyway. And it makes me a bit less observant of things in my dog's life that are just naturally enriching them. That if my dog does stop suddenly because a cow has appeared in a field we've never seen before, now that I'm in that enrichment mindset, I'm going to stop too and be like, oh, wow, what is this new sight? Okay, yeah, let's just sit here for a while and watch. That's enriching.
Yeah.
That's what it's about, you know. It's just whatever your dog is enjoying, stop and enjoy it with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And we sometimes forget about all that.
Yeah, I think we do, especially even as trainers. Sometimes we get so bogged down in reactivity training or changing this or modifying or getting things on a stimulus, and we forget to just enjoy the time with our dog. Go back to that relationship that we have with them.
I know. Yeah, I know. Right, I don't see any more comments, so I think like if you watch this on replay, absolutely you can also still add it in the comments and we can come back to it later. Oh yeah, she's saying this is just a comment, it's not a question. If you use pots for your plants, you can move them around and use different height and surfaces, which is, yeah, absolutely.
Very good, yeah. Making it novel again, making it more interesting by changing it up. That's a good point.
Yeah. And also so glad you said about the medication struggle in our house. Hope you speak on this again. Yeah, you can basically use well, when I have to give medication, usually I either put it in meat or something. I don't know what your dog is on, Teresa, but wet food or a bit of meat, and you just hide it in. Or if you put it in a Kong and it's frozen, it can be easier to swallow. Because I know that sometimes giving a tablet to your dog is not the easiest thing on earth. What do you do? Do you have any recommendation regarding that?
At the moment, I'm doing kind of my dog's not the worst for it, but I'll take 3 treats. And so we're going like treat, tablet, treat, just so that they're in that swallowing action. Yeah. And they've kind of gone, oh, what was that one? It doesn't matter if there's another treat coming into your mouth. Yeah. That a little bit of trickery, I guess. Or the paste can be really good because that licking and lapping usually will toss it to the back of the throat. So I'd never thought to use a Kong, but I might try that out with them.
Yeah. Depends. Every dog is so different.
Yeah. They are individuals at the end of the day. You can get so much advice from everyone, and your dog can turn around and tell you, no, that doesn't work for me.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a great part about dogs.
Yeah. They always keep us thinking, keep us on our toes.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I think we're just going to wrap it up. And if you have any question, we can come back to it in the comments, as I say. So don't, you can just post it out there. And even if you're watching on replay. And we'll see you, Olivia, again. Don't miss Friday's session with Olivia about canine body language, because this is going to be mind-blowing. So don't miss that. And now we're going to take a 20-ish minutes break, and then we'll be back at 7:30 to talk about the rescues. And this is going to be another one not to miss if you want, to to learn more about rescue dog, but mainly about the rescue dog situation in Ireland and how you can help them. And if you're interested in adopting a rescue, what should you do? What should you teach? The requirements and why is it so hard and la la la. We'll cover all this, so don't miss that either. And we're just going to take a little break, and we will be back very soon. Bye, and thank you. Right, life